There are lots of ancient sites in the Ukrainian capital Kiev. For instance, this, the Pечерська Lavra complex. Despite the war in eastern Ukraine, around 1.5 million people visited the monastery. More than half of them were foreigners. It's a pretty good example of how Kiev is an attractive location for tourists. And if you want to see a real success story, you have to travel to Lviv. More than 2 million tourists visited that city last year. But how have citizens of Lviv managed to turn it into a tourist mecca? Let's go to Lviv and find out. If it's your first time in Lviv and you don't know what to start with, where to have lunch or where to stay, you can go to any tourist information centre. This one is located right in the centre square by the City Hall. Let's see how it works.
Every person who comes to us can get a map of the city and a museum guide. The purpose is so tourists can read some brief information about the museums and their working hours, as well as plan their visit. We have a list of events for the current week, starting from classical music all the way through to live music in pubs. People can choose whatever they like. People are free to ask extra questions, places to eat, some special places, and places where the best panorama view is. The list is endless. It's very important people can get all these basic things for free, like a map, museum guide, and a list of restaurants and cafes. More than 60% of all these people who come spend money in commercial institutions in Lviv on our recommendation. That number is increasing. The money is then returned to the city through taxes. It's a virtuous cycle, and it's more favorable to the city than having a municipal enterprise that provides services on a commercial basis.
Look, this gate was opened in 1600, then it was closed in the year 1625. In 1976 it was opened again. But what was the reason? Well, the bell on the tower of this Bernardine church rang every day at 7 p.m. There was a ringer, and then the security closed the gate. But once a monk saw that the Tatar army was coming from over there, where the forest was. It was 6:55 p.m. He was clever enough and quickly decided what to do. He set the clock 5 minutes ahead. The bell rang and the security closed the gate in front of the invaders. For more than 300 years, nobody took the risk to open it again. In honor of that monk, the clock on the tower is set 5 minutes ahead. Each Ukrainian tourist who comes to Lviv spends around 282 euros on average. Foreigners spend around 600 euros every trip. You can easily count it up. Last year, 2 million tourists visited Lviv. When guests spend this money, the people who work here and own businesses here benefit from this. Our task is to create an environment in which it's comfortable for them to work in.
More than 12 million people visited Ukraine in 2015. That means Ukraine ranked the third among all the countries in Eastern and Central Europe. At the same time, it's 2 times less than it was before the war started. The World Tourist Organization says that the military conflict in eastern Ukraine is the main reason for it. The data on the amount of money people spent in Ukraine is also disappointing. In 2014, foreign tourists usually spent $127 when staying in Ukraine. That's twice as less than in neighboring countries. The lack of state support for developing tourism is the main reason for it. That's despite the fact that law on tourism says tourism is a priority in expanding the Ukrainian economy and culture. No money at all has been allocated to this area in recent years. The law on tourism was adopted in 1995. A lot of amendments have been made to it. There are still no definitions of business and shopping tourism in it, which have brought massive profit in countries which develop them. The Ukrainian parliament registered 5 bills that have to do with tourism within a year and a half. 2 of them have to do with the development of rural green tourism. 2 of them have to do with rehabilitation and social tourism. And the last one offers to use money from tourist tax only in the development of Ukrainian tourism and infrastructure.
The
Tourism is associated with journeys, camping, and backpacks. Ukrainians often appeal to me and ask whether it's me who is working on tourism development. They say that they've designed such a cool route through the Policia paths. I usually ask in response how it is connected with tourism development. They say that children of school age will come and take these Policia paths. But tourism is an economic issue. I work on such tourism development that will strengthen our economy and create jobs. Our country can earn billions of dollars on tourism. This money doesn't go to budget directly, but is allocated to small and middle business development and the creation of jobs. The non-cash transactions of tourists accounted to $4 billion before 2013. It's the official data of the National Bank of Ukraine. After the crisis, the number of tourists decreased twice, and non-cash transactions reduced to $2 billion. Does the state need this money? Of course. We as lawmakers and officials have to do. There are three things needed. Firstly, the political will and understanding the importance of the domestic and international tourism. Second, changes in infrastructure. And thirdly, promotion.
What is convention tourism and why is it important to Lviv?
A lot of experts usually come when conferences are held. They bring their knowledge and expertise. Interested locals can get knowledge directly from these experts. Another important factor is the economy. Business tourists usually spend more money than ordinary ones. Conferences take place when there are no festivals, around late February, early March, or in late November. In such a way, it's possible to provide jobs all year round.
I've met mayors of different cities many times, and they usually say, tourism is rising, come and see. We come and they show us that they have dancing girls and say, oh look, over there, dumplings. I ask them, how much do they earn on it? What earnings? That's our hospitality, they say. And what does tourism have to do with it? It's not about tourism, it's about people's souls. It can be used for tourism. Of course, there's a good ground for it, but not a result. Currently, all tourism infrastructure has to be privatized. I can't understand why the state keeps such a burden for. I mean, the state has museums, but not all. Yet there are state hotels. What does the state need hotels for? Why are there no state hairdressers then, or cafes? Although we have state cafes. But why do we need state hotels, health resorts and state camps for? If we privatize them, we'll get an additional 4 billion hryvnias, not for officials, but for associations, tourism associations, which won't even get this money, as the contractors are chosen through the ProZorro procurement system.